بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim collected in their Sahih on the authority of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. She says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard an argument between two people right outside her door. And then if you think about the door of Aisha's room is where the Prophet ﷺ is buried now. The door used to be open into the masjid, and it still is. It is part of the masjid. So the Prophet ﷺ was in her room, and he heard two people arguing. One of them was pleading with the other to give him a break about a loan that he had loaned him. And then he was asking for that kindness. The other one says, by Allah, I will not do it. The Prophet ﷺ comes out when he heard that argument, and especially the statement of the person saying, by Allah, I won't do it. He comes out, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he says, أين المتألي على الله? Who is this one who swears by Allah on something wrong? He is swearing not to do good. Who is in his right mind? In other words, the Prophet is saying, you swearing by Allah you want to do something good. And the man says, Ya Rasulullah, I was the one that was swearing not to do it. And he said to the Prophet ﷺ, which of the two, Ya Allah, Ya Rasulullah, which of the two is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the Prophet ﷺ goes on, of course, to give the best of the two options. ما خير صلى الله عليه وسلم بين أمرين إلا اختار أيسرهما وأفضلهما. Never was the Prophet ﷺ given a choice between two options except that he would choose the best and the easiest of the two. You know, in this hadith, subhanallah, there are a couple things. One has to do with the Prophet ﷺ interjection into this argument. Conflict resolution. Immediately the Prophet ﷺ did not hesitate. When in fact, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would always keep out of people's business. But when there is a time of correction, he would not hesitate, nor would he delay it. And there is a rule that was taken, extrapolated from the behavior of the Prophet ﷺ in addressing issues immediately, that says, تأخير البيان على وقت الحاجة لا يجوز. Clarification at its due time cannot be delayed. It is not permissible to delay. Immediately. And this is across the board with everything. If you take that rule with your family, with yourself, with your job, with everything, anything that needs clarification in a timely manner, do not delay it for any other justifications or excuses. Why? Because the consequences are far worse than justifications to give at that moment. This is one. Two, the Prophet ﷺ left a legacy of ahadith, litany of ahadith when it comes to giving people a break. He says sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this regard, especially for those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted wealth. And it is not always monetary. It could be services, it could be a lot of things, but especially monetary. Because when people are strapped financially and you come through to help, that is so tremendous. In one of the cases, the Prophet ﷺ always sends out those incentives that you get out of being there of service and of help in times of need and hardship for others. He says, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in Hadith Abu al-Yusr, he says, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Man anzara mu'sira. Anybody who would give break for somebody who is strapped financially when time for a loan is due to being paid back. It's your right to collect your dues back. But then again, instead, you went the lofty way, and that is to give that person a break because it's in a tight spot. أو حط عنه, or forgive that loan altogether. He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَظَلَّهُ اللَّهُ فِي ظِلِّهِ يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلَّهُ. That person's reward is nothing can buy you what he gives you on the land of resurrection, and that is for Allah Ta'ala to grant you a shade that he creates for specific categories of people. One of them is a person who is able to give people a break and or to forgive the loans altogether, subhanallah. Not to mention that forgiving the loans does not really diminish. Allah will replace it. فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. Allah will replace it for sure. Not only monetary, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace it on so many levels in so many different ways. Subhanallah. Because He is the most generous, subhanahu wa ta'ala. On a different level, He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that when you give out a loan, whatever the amount is, it goes down in your record on a daily basis as a sadaqah. Half of that amount goes down in your record as a sadaqah on a daily basis up until you collect that amount. You gave somebody $100, $50 donation on a daily basis goes down in your record until you collect that money. Imagine that. It is a source that generates reward for you on a constant basis. And this is why the incentives, when you take the reward of the akhirah out of the equation, then people become very calculated in materialistic, mathematical way. What's in it for me? Numbers. But those numbers, they're related to this material world. But when you bring into it the incentive of the akhirah, the whole perspective changes, and so does the behavior. Subhanallah. And here's what the Prophet ﷺ, in other words, he is saying to this man who is in his right mind swearing not to do good. Look at all of these rewards awaiting for the hereafter. And you wanted to miss out on that? Because the perspective is different. The person is looking at it from a transactional point of view, and that is it's a loan, time is due, you're asking him for an extra time. Wallahi, I won't do it. Prophet comes out and he says, why? You're swearing about something good that you don't want to do. You don't want to do something good. So in other words, a lot of times we don't know any better, and then we default to what we know. Learn better to do better. Do better to get better. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who, when they hear the speech, they follow the best of it. Wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ala nabiyina Muhammad walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.